In King of the Hill, players don't score points by killing each other. Instead, players must contest a moving objective in order to score points. Rather than creating a free-for-all, as death matches usually do, this mode encourages losing players to collaborate to dethrone the leading player. To better enable this, the game clearly marks the player who is in the lead with a crown that is visible to all players. The mode's scripting is divided up into specialized prefabs to make setting up the mode on new maps as easy as possible. The crown is controlled by a prefab that checks which player has the highest number of points each time an event happens that could alter the standings, like a player scoring or a player disconnecting. Each possible point location is its own prefab, with custom inputs built in to tell the point to turn on or off. This is all controlled by scripting in the map itself that coordinates point prefabs and the crown, making sure that the point rotates every minute and ensuring that the same location is not triggered twice in a row. I'll now go into more depth about how each prefab works. The crown has two different inputs that are triggered whenever the point standings change. This getEntity node finds the player with the most points, then compares to see if that player is the same as the current king. If it's not, that means that the king has been dethroned. The king entity group will be emptied out, and the new king will be added. Then, the crown will be assigned to follow this new king. The crown itself is only visible while it's touching the king, so when the king dies, it'll disappear correctly. There's also a massive trigger that is used to detect the king respawning and will assign the crown to them. I made a lot of changes to my logic as I got feedback, and after a new getEntity node was added by the developer that makes this mode much more straightforward. The point location prefab has many nodes, most of which handle the animations of the points. The game manager ensures that the point itself only appears in the correct mode. The prefab manager has an on and off input. Each gets passed through a mover that serves as a toggle and prevents a point that is on from being enabled again or a point that is off from being disabled again, which would cause animation bugs. These relays delay certain actions for the animation, starting with this row of 4 relays that handles changing the light colors and the line of sparks that goes across the top of the point. After this is completed, another relay begins opening the doors on the point before triggering the point to raise out of the ground. When the point reaches the surface, a final relay is called to enable the scoring functionality and display the outline of the point. The off input is significantly simpler, with almost everything being disabled and reversed simultaneously. After the point has fully descended, the doors close after it. The point keeps track of which players are on it using this entity group, which adds and subtracts players as they enter or leave a trigger. This mover loops while at least one player is on the point, which updates every half second. If exactly one player is on the point, it will score a point for them. Or, if more than one player is on the point, it will be set as contested and nobody will score. This integer variable keeps track of how many players are on the point by adding one every time the trigger is entered and subtracting one every time it is left. Because this mode needs special geometry to adapt to its points, the custom mode manager signals to make these specific changes. Containers are used to toggle mode-specific geometry off and on. This relay disables all points by calling their off inputs, then, after a short delay to allow points to close, calls a relay that will enable a point randomly. This creates a loop between disabling all points and randomly opening another point. When each of these rows is called, its specific point will be enabled, and a toggle will make sure that this point cannot be called the next time by setting it to inactive, which will prevent it from being chosen randomly. My scripting still certainly has its flaws, but I've been improving my scripting abilities further as I get more feedback and as I learn how to apply my programming experience to this environment.